Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on investigating extension permission model for Chrome. So in addition to standard web browsing functionality, Chrome provides developers with extension APIs that can extend the capabilities of the browser. By downloading these add-ons, users can customize their browsing experience by changing the appearance and behavior of web pages and of Chrome itself. Extensions have become increasingly popular since their introduction, and the Chrome Web Store is full of extensions developed both by Google and by independent companies or developers. In order to provide these web browsing enhancements, Chrome extensions are allowed more flexibility and control than traditional web applications. In this project, we attempt to uncover how extensions misuse this privilege and harm the users. Permission escalation is at the heart of privilege abuse on the browsers. If there are discrepancies between what an extension can do and what the user thinks it can do, the architecture leaves room for exploitation. Finding such discrepancies in the wild is the focus of this project. So this was our initial timeline proposed in the last presentation. Right now, the stage we're at is highlighted in green. Up until this point, we have been in line with our initial planned timeline, but we may change a few things moving forward, which we will get back later in this presentation.
For checkpoint 2, we collected permission information from a representative set of over 1,000 extensions from the Chrome extension store. We then analyzed the permissions data to observe the most frequently requested permissions. Initially, we attempted to use the tool Tarnish to analyze the extensions, but because there was no API for us to use to automate the analyzing process and downloading, we manually downloaded all of them. These extensions were divided into 12 categories, and to ensure that each got equal representation, we tried to download the same number for each set. We also wrote a script that navigated to each directory's manifest file, extracted the permission information, and then created a CSV to map the permissions to the extension IDs. Here you can see our preliminary results. The top use permissions were storage, tabs, active tab, and context menus. Storage allows the extension to directly access user data without the need for a background page and stores the user data in objects. Furthermore, the extension settings can be persisted even when in incognito mode, so long as the incognito permission is set. The tabs permission allows the extension to create, modify, and rearrange tabs in the user's browser, while the active tab permission gives an extension temporary access to the currently active tab when the user invokes a browser extension. It also allows for the execution of keyboard shortcuts from the Commands API. Lastly, with the context menus permission, the extension can control the menus that appear when the user right-clicks and can possibly redirect or assist the user to a malicious page. Because we wanted to ensure that the data was not heavily skewed by one category, we conducted the same analysis on the 12 extension groups that Google had already delineated. For 10 out of the 12 sections, the permissions generally matched with our collective preliminary analysis. Here, accessibility and blogging were closely matched. As we move forward, the storage and permissions tabs remain the most used, while the all URLs permission becomes more prevalent. The two extension categories that differed the most were the photos and sports sections. Here, the most used permission was unlimited storage, which allows the extension to exceed the length set by the local.storage setting. However, the most interesting finding was the addition of the the free addon.com. When navigating to the site, we discovered that it was blocked by Malwarebytes as being potentially malicious. As it wasn't the top 4 permissions requested, it raised a red flag. During our analysis, we found out that the following permissions use the most, or rather the following extensions use the most permissions. Our initial thought was to flag these as malicious for using so many permissions. However, a further analysis showed that most of these permissions were specific URLs that the extensions have requested. So in a way, this is better than asking for a general URL access, since they're whitelisting the URLs that they require.
Yes, so our first challenge was that the tool that we initially planned on using, which was Tarnish, had no APIs that would allow us to automate the analysis process. Hence, using the tool at a scale of 1,000 extensions was not possible and what was not feasible. This meant that we had to write scripts that would automate the extraction of data from the manifest files. And this led to our second challenge, which is after some research, we established that downloading and installing extensions had to be done manually. This slowed us down, and hence it took us longer than we expected it would take us. Lastly, Chrome's web store isn't very transparent about how the extensions that are shown to us are ranked or sorted. Furthermore, it does not allow users to sort the extensions in any way or by any metric. So you can't just say that I want to sort the extensions that are being shown to me by the number of downloads or the best rankings or the date when it was uploaded. Next slide. Yeah, so for the next few steps in this project, we will use our preliminary results and identify widely used permissions that can have malicious context. This will require us to study how these permissions are used and what they allow the developer to do exactly. We will also look at permissions that might not be the most widely used ones, but might raise some security flags, such as the prevalence of the free addon.com permission in extensions in the in the photography category. Finally, if we have enough time, we will demonstrate that some of these identified permissions can be maliciously used by developing actual real malicious extensions that use these permissions. Next slide. For this, and so we will be moving away from like the initially proposed timeline because we feel like uh, we can now combine both proposed plan A and proposed plan B from our milestone 1 presentation, which was that we can now also look to develop a maliciously we can look to develop a malicious extension, and also we can maybe study on the permissions themselves and see how they can be exploited. For this week, we will look into identifying malicious abilities that the most frequently used permissions have. Next week, we will try demonstrating these malicious abilities through identified permissions by developing malicious extensions of our own. We will then spend 2 weeks to complete our paper and final presentation, and then deliver our presentation in the first or second week of May. Next slide. Yeah, as for our contributions, I analyzed the data and created the statistical inferences. Zishan parsed relevant permission information from the extensions, and Ravi wrote scripts to extract the permission data from the collected extensions manifest files. Finally, each of us took 4 different categories of extensions to evenly divide the manual labor of collecting and downloading these extensions. Uh, yeah, and that concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.